Okay, we are live. We're ready to go. Everyone ready to go? Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, and welcome to Republic City Hall here on February the 10th, 2026 for our workshop. First item on our agenda for this afternoon, we have the 2026 City Paving Plan presentation and discussion. And we have Mr. Angel Falik here this afternoon to give us an overview.
Morning, City Council. Thank you again for taking the time to meet with us today to go over this paving plan. Again, I'm Angel Falik, Development Engineer, Builds Department, here to share this information with you this morning. Okay, with this presentation, we'll briefly go over our budget this year and the upcoming years, as well as a recap of 2025, our plans for 26, process overview with data and street collection, and then we'll cap it off with some treatment options that we've utilized in the city. Okay, an overview of our budget this year. We have $675,000 budgeted for this year's plan project. Again, this was included in our 10-year CIP improvement plan prepared by our finance team. We have estimated $750,000, 27 all the way to 2035. If you have any questions, you guys can ask away. This is open-ended discussion, so. Okay, our paving projects in recent years, I'll highlight 2025. We had 12 roads completed last year with about 21,400 linear feet of road improved. That included South Lynn Avenue and Miller Road. This year we planned for around 24 to 25 roads. Something new this year is we're going back to pressure paving. This was done in the city back in 22. We're revisiting that again. And then most of them being mill and overlay, about 17,460 linear feet of road. We'll cover that in more detail later in this presentation. Okay, just to highlight a few of the streets that we paved last year. Lynn Avenue. This is a secondary arterial road, heavily traveled. We improved about 1,580 linear feet of road along this stretch. So from the Hines and Lynn roundabout all the way down to Miller Road. Again, this was, I know we received a few complaints, but I believe the contractor did the best they could with this improvement, with it being heavily traveled. So. Okay, next on our highlights is Miller Road. This is also a secondary arterial road. To the right there, you'll see this is just east of the Mason Ridge subdivision. Okay, if I can get this pointer. And this improvement extended from Mason Ridge all the way just east of Lynn Avenue. I'll note that Greene County did complete some improvements last year, starting from our stretch along Farmer 186 all the way down to ZZ. Okay, this is a local road, Alexander Avenue, just west of Lynn Avenue. We received a ton of compliments from the residents along this street. You can see there the before condition. A lot of cracking on this street. This street received a mill and overlay, and we're overall satisfied with the product that the contractor provided on this street. As you can see, the cul-de-sac here was in really bad condition prior to construction, and following that, you should drive it if you haven't. It's a really good street that was completed last year. Okay, last on our highlights is South Kansas Avenue. So this extended from 174, MoDOT's right-of-way, all the way down just north of county limits, West Farmer 188. There is still a short stretch of Kansas that we need to complete this year to complete that full full road. So again, this is a secondary arterial, heavily traveled, so we're really happy with this improvement this past year. Okay, next, we covered this in last year's workshop. We're just here to give you a summary of our process and give you an idea of how we identify and select roads, our processes with that, all the way to advertising bids to start of construction, okay? So annually, our street crews and our inspectors help us with this endeavor. They go out and they document the condition of each street, and they use a GIS app called Quick Capture. So with that app, they're able to, take photos, note any discrepancies or defects in that street, and what that provides us is data and a GPS location. And with that, we're able to create through GIS a pavement rating map, which I'll share here shortly. And that gives us, it provides full transparency of the condition of our streets, and it gives us a good way to identify streets to select that in that year's paving project. Okay, other things we consider are objective tiebreakers. So that may include anywhere from road classifications, road conditions, the expected lifespan of that street. So if there's ever, if we ever need to decide on 2 particular streets to include that year, we'll evaluate those tiebreakers. And then following completion of our paving project, we ask our street crews and inspectors to go around and evaluate these streets again, just to see if there's anything that we might want to include on our pavement rating map. Okay, so bids will be posted this month. We'll host a pre-bid meeting with interested paving contractors late February. And then we'll move on to opening bids in March of 26. I just learned this morning that this item will not need to go to council, but because it was approved in our budget last year as a part of our 10-year CIP improvement plan. But we'll be sure to provide you any updates if there are any changes to this prior to construction. Okay. Following selection of contractor, we'll host a pre-construction meeting. At this meeting, we'll discuss with the awarded contractor their phasing plan, their traffic control plan, a quality assurance plan for any third-party testing required for this project. And then the plan is to begin construction in May after schools get out for the summer, with a plan to complete all paving and striping before schools reopen in August. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, we have with all the data that we gather, our street department and our inspectors, we have what you see here, our pavement rating map. So this is the north part of town, and the colors on the left, resemble the condition of the pavement: good, fair, poor, bad. As you can see, it takes a ton of work just going around and documenting each of these streets, and our street crews have done a great job kind of gathering this data for us. And then this is the south part of town. Again, you see a few more green dots this year because last year we improved most of the poor rated and fair rated roads. You'll see here some of the bad rated streets. I'll discuss later in this presentation. Okay, just to give you an idea of the good rated streets, these aren't typically considered in our paving project because of the good condition. But examples of this these streets would have minimal structural cracking and some minor improvements may be needed for these streets. I've listed a few examples here. Again, if you have any questions on the items I'm sharing, I may be moving a little fast, so be sure to, you guys can ask questions. Okay, the next on our rating condition is fair. So most of the distresses observed on these streets are minor cracking, alligator cracking, but no progressive faulting of joints or cracks, or where you witness asphalt popping out of the pavement. I will say East Mill Street and Southeast Ave are borderline poor rated streets. All of these streets will be included in our project this year. Okay, moving on to poor rated streets in the city. So this is where most of our project funding is spent. We focus on poor rated streets, then move down to fair rated streets, so on and so forth. Okay, this is where you may witness severe alligator cracking, like here on Southampton Avenue. Major street cuts and repairs on East Lee Street, and then severe alligator cracking on South Maple Avenue. Again, most of our funding is focused on these poor rated streets, and our plan moving forward is to just reevaluate and recondition these streets to be in order to provide a list for the following year's paving plan. Okay, as you saw on the map earlier, there were a few red spots. A few examples of this are on Farmer 160. Again, severe alligator cracking, asphalt pavement failures, street cuts, repairs. The reason we're holding off on this is we're aware of the MM project that will be upcoming real soon. The contractor is proposing to utilize this road heavily to transport stockpile material from Amazon to their project site. So it'll only damage it more. We don't want to waste, not waste, but utilize our funding to repair a street that may be torn up. Okay, another example of this is West Logan Street. We've mentioned this in last year's presentation. We have some stormwater improvements to complete prior to improving this road. I will say that we have an stamped engineer plans for the stormwater improvements in that area. So after construction and reevaluating of those stormwater improvements, we can consider paving West Logan Street. Okay, and then West Hines Street, you're aware of some water main upgrades that need to be installed along that stretch, all of which are in the right of way under our street. So until we can complete those upgrades, we plan to postpone this improvement. Okay, again, when we select our roads, for each year's paving plan, we consider project constraints. I'm providing some updates on last year's workshop. Again, wastewater treatment construction is ongoing, so although we have a section of West Street that will be included in our paving project this year, the north stretch of West Street will be left out of this year's paving plan because of the ongoing traffic construction loads on that street. Again, I talked briefly about Farmer 160 with the MM realignment project. We're gonna hold off on this street until, we can ensure that after improvements are made, it won't get torn up. And then Morris Park stormwater, that's related to the West Logan Street. So again, we plan to make stormwater improvements there with our crews just to improve the drainage just north of the floodplain, slow down that water and improve drainage on that street. Okay, MoDOT's MM expansion in our project, any roads adjacent to that, we're just aware of it. Okay, West Hines Street, again, our water main replacement, we're holding off until that gets done. Again, we have an engineer working on the contract to prepare plans for that improvement. And then our ongoing I&I pilot program on West Charles Street. We're holding off until we can make those sanitary sewer service line repairs. Okay, I'll provide a summary of our 2026 overlay paving plan. We have a bunch of local streets listed this year. Again, these are mostly rated poor on our rating map. so they were included this year. And then a few secondary arterial streets on there as well. The last section of South Kansas that needs to be improved to tie into Greene County limits. North Bailey Ave, which is in pretty poor shape, just east of the park there, all the way down to Kentwood. And then the last stretch of Farm Road 174 toward Oakwood Avenue. Okay, something new this year is pressure paving. We have done this in the past, 2022. We're looking to install this again this year. Okay, these streets listed on here are mostly fair rated streets, so it doesn't require too many road repairs to be made before this is done. And again, the main intent with pressure paving is to just seal the pavement with the surface layer to prevent water intrusion, to lengthen the life of that pavement. East Gray Street is on here. I'd just like to highlight the new subdivision about to be completed to the east, Brookside Estates. This will complete East Gray Street all the way from Main to Lynn Avenue. That will be a major collector for us. Secondary arterials included. Again, the last stretch of Farm Road 174 at Oakwood Avenue. Okay, just an overview plan. I'd like to shout out to Aiden, who prepared this map in less than 30 minutes. It would have taken me maybe 2 days to prepare. So I really appreciate our GIS team for helping out. And we're excited with the new team to be able to, evaluate our process and our rating maps to see where we can improve. Again, this is just an overview. Green are pressure paving treatment options, and then blue here is mill and overlay.
Mr. Campbell, what is pressure?
Okay, I'll cover that shortly. Okay? Thank you. Great question. Okay, I'll now cover some treatment options, first being asphalt overlay. This is something you're pretty familiar with. We've done this in years past. So again, this involves some form of milling and then 2-inch asphalt overlay. Again, this addresses most minor structural concerns. It extends the life of the road about 10 to 15 years. Again, it's adaptable because we can match existing grades after milling, and then it will work for various types of wear. Again, it's less expensive than a full reconstruction, estimated at $92 per ton of asphalt. Again, this is in downtown by the old City Hall and the old Public Works. This was done in '24. Okay, now we'll cover the pressure paving treatment option. Thank you. Thank you, Darren. Okay, so pressure paving is a seal on the top of a existing pavement surface. It involves a 3-step process. So first step would be pressure injection of a sealant on an existing asphalt. I'll provide an image here. So here, where you have your existing asphalt, this black colored item here would be your pressure injection of seal. So this would help with any water intrusion. And it's basically a material that they lay before they lay this new second seal driving surface. That ranges from 1/4 to 3/8 inch thick driving surface. And then they have a second seal driving surface above this. So the plan with pressure pave is, again, to limit the water intrusion to the subgrade of any existing pavement. And they consider this a self-repairing pressure pavement or treatment option, because when it gets heated up, that mastic melts and it seals all those cracks that we see in the pavement. So this is a little cheaper than your typical asphalt mill and overlay. And we're kind of excited to consider this option this year. We've heard a lot of good things from Greene County. They've completed their 2025 micro seal and pressure pave project, just surrounding city limits. If you see Farm Road 99, 97, Farm Road 186, a lot of areas which they covered this past year. I can answer or share any information I have on this. I also have a few videos I can share with you, just to provide more, more information on this. Sorry there. Right. And
Mr. Harder.
We had done this in the past,
yes, sir.
we have, and why did we quit doing that?
It was just, we piggybacked off of Greene County's contract with Donaldson Construction. It was just something that at the time, we considered streets in poor condition, so we focused on asphalt overlay. Pressure pave is typically recommended for fair rated streets, so, nothing that had serious defects, serious alligator cracking, block cracking. And our plan, late 2024 to 2025, we tried to focus on poor rated streets, which, I shared with you earlier, the pavement rating map. But our plan this year, because we have covered most of our poor rated streets, we're moving into our fair rated streets now. We're considering pressure pave as an option.
Okay, with the asphalt overlay, you're getting 10 to 15 years. What are you getting with the pressure pave?
You're getting about 2 to 5 years per my research on the sealant. So this will lengthen the life likely more than that, because you're sealing the surface from water intrusion. But as far as I know, anywhere from 2 to 5 years for that sealant.
So it's basically just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it until you get to where you can get to the asphalt.
It can be seen as that, and it also provides us with the flexibility to focus on, poor rated streets first with the asphalt overlay, focus our funds on that, preserve some of the fair rated streets in the meantime, and then reevaluate streets after a paving project.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harder. And Colton would like to add something.
Yeah, Dan, I was just gonna comment too on, so the degradation curve of a street, as it gets bad, it gets worse. And so another advantage to pressure pave is it helps you keep that curve higher at a cheaper value, so you keep it at a better grade quicker to avoid that little downward spiral that it takes.
I had been here when we had done the pressure paving in the past, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And I hate to make light of it, but it is a Band-Aid.
Mhm.
But it's a good Band-Aid. It puts your roads out to a complete overlay a couple of years. And I just think people need to know that this isn't a fix
Right.
on the road. This is gonna get you a Band-Aid until we can get to the complete overlay. So I think a lot of people are under the impression that my road's gonna be better now. Well, it is, but it's not gonna be 100% like you want it to be, probably.
Right, correct.
I just want to clarify that as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Harder, and a great lead into that, Councilmember Campbell. All great questions, and thank you, Colton, for adding to that. Those videos, I can remember from our last trip into this, those videos are a really good visual representation of how that process works. And I know from the graph, that's a pretty good graph on showing and explaining how that works, but those videos really show it into effect. And I think it was at Island Green subdivision, and there were some other spots through the city that we've
Yes,
done.
there were some other spots in the city, but Island Green was one of them.
Mhm. Any other questions before? Okay, thank you, Angel, for.
Okay, the next treatment option can also be seen as a Band-Aid. Our crews perform this internally. They revisit this fall of each year. So they consider streets where they can crack seal or re-crack seal, just to extend put a Band-Aid on that road until we can make further improvements. And this is the lowest cost pavement preservation treatment type, so readily available to our street crews, and it's one that they utilize each year.
And Angel, could I?
Uh-huh.
And that's something new to Republic, isn't it? The vehicle that allows us to apply that
The pressure injection.
For the crack sealing, the machine that melts the tar.
Uh-huh, right.
That's a new feature that we've added in the last couple of years. That I know I've seen them going around, and even I've seen them go through my neighborhood. I can remember back when we had approached this before, that was a huge need for Republic, just on that. I know we call it kind of a Band-Aid, and maybe Band-Aid, but longevity, extending the life of the road. But just seeing how that works and the effect that that has made, I think has been tremendous on preventing that damage from getting worse faster and allowing us to do those repavements, so.
Yes, sir.
But, sorry, I just wanted to add that. That was one of the highlights, I think, of last year's getting that machine, and we've got that capability now. I'm sure the crew thinks differently of it, but, yeah.
Well, I'll just mention that some of the street crew members and I attended that pressure pave workshop, and they were real excited about the pressure pave option, because it would kind of limit the amount of crack sealing that they would have to perform yearly, so
Okay,
they were
awesome.
real happy and excited about it.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Okay, so that completes our treatment options that we've utilized in the city. And then I'm providing, just a list of completed roads we've done since 2023. About 30,000 linear feet in 23. Around 24,000 linear feet in 24. And then with last year's project, I'll just mention there's a typo in this slide. We actually completed 22,000 linear feet of road, and that includes a stretch of Farm Road 174 that APAC completed for us after completion of the CIP 3 wastewater project. So this year we'll be completing the full stretch of Farm Road 174. Okay, with that, I conclude the presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Harder.
Yeah, I'm back. So in a lot of the older neighborhoods, they're asphalt curbs. Are you guys doing anything with asphalt curbs? I know when you do an overlay or something, I know when you do a complete road, you take it down and usually doesn't affect the curbing.
Right.
But as you do overlays and stuff like that, that affects the curbing. And are you planning on doing any repairs to the asphalt curbing?
Those are really hard to restore, asphalt curbs, so I think eventually they would just be, they would try to match the existing grades with that asphalt overlay. Again, our plan is to, with the older parts of town, with the limited amount of right-of-way, we really need curb and gutter systems for it to benefit, with stormwater drainage. But off the top of my head, those are really hard to maintain, those asphalt curb and gutter types. And we'll evaluate that in more detail, provide you a better answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harder. Do we have any, Councilmember Gerke?
Thanks for all the information, a lot of good information. Do we have the ability, it seems like we're getting rid of the bad roads, right? And then, do we have anything that we can show year to year of percentage of roads that were rated poor that, 'cause it seems like we're turning a corner, right? And do we have any of that information or provide that in the future?
Not readily in the slides here, but it's definitely something that we can provide. And like I mentioned, we're working with the GIS team to provide, this data in real time whenever we're asked for this information. So we can definitely.
You guys done a great job, and I think that's a good way to kind of show that, I appreciate all the good work you've done, but I feel like we're turning a corner and having options that we can do more roads for less money, and I think showing that would be beneficial.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gerke. I definitely agree. I can definitely tell it between the work from staff on maximizing those tax dollars for stretching our roads the furthest. It's been enlightening the last couple of years to see that progress. So yeah, seeing that on paper and a graph would be great too. Councilmember Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say to the whole team, I've said this before, anytime that we can evaluate something, for instance, like the 164 up there by Amazon, where there's going to be more road construction and heavy use on that, delaying those. I've seen it in the past where the freeways are the concrete is grounded off and they're striping the westbound side, and then they turn around and grind that off within a couple weeks. So it really is frustrating to see money spent like that. And I will always try to, it's easy for us to nitpick and have complaints just as citizens, but seeing y'all's effort to work with the state and the county and know all these things in advance, I just commend you for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. Any additional questions, comments from City Council? Okay, Mr. Fleet, wonderful presentation this afternoon. Really appreciate that, and sharing that process too with how we select which roads we're going to tackle this year, I guess you could say. But yeah, great information on sharing to the public how those rank and how staff makes their decisions on which ones get. And great questions, great comments from City Council. So, was this the end of your?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
So
you all
thank
for
you very
making this
much.
presentation. Again, any questions or any information you need, I'm available.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much. And again, questions from City Council or comments, make sure we get with staff if we have any. We are ready. And so our food is ready. We'll remain live, but we'll go ahead and get our food, get back here, get settled in for the second part of our workshop. So as soon as, we'll go ahead and go back here to the back and grab our food. We'll be right back. All right, everyone ready? Okay, looks like we're ready to go. So for our second item on today's workshop agenda, we have presentation and discussion. We have Miss Karen Hayes here this afternoon to give us an overview.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Republic City Council approved a partnership with BNSF to conduct a rail corridor study in June of 2024. This was an estimated cost for the City of Republic for $42,000. The project included a study of the crossings and rail corridor within city limits, resulting in an outline of a collaborative plan with BNSF to identify potential opportunities for future improvements, closures, and grade separations. Additional details of the project included conducting on-site visits, performing preliminary engineering services, developing cost estimates for construction, preparing draft agreements, and providing comments on preliminary layouts or other designs, plans, and documents in connection with the project. Wilson and Company Engineers was hired by BNSF for the project, with work completed last summer. Wilson provided an overview of the study to staff last summer. We were happy to have Jim and Garrett with Wilson and Company and Jeremy from BNSF to provide an overview of the results of the study.
Good morning.
Good morning.
That's it.
Afternoon.
Not quite. Almost.
Well, yeah, you're right. I'll be.
Oh, I checked it before.
Well,
I came
welcome
up
back.
here. Thank you. I was going to say it's good to be back, but I've never been here before, so this
Yeah.
place is incredible. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So I don't have the clicker thing. I just realized that. So yeah, as Karen said, last year we looked at the railroad through Republic, as you are well aware of. So this is kind of going to walk through some of our findings and then talk about some opportunities, some of the improvements we're recommending, and then some next steps if we want to move forward with anything. So a little bit of background on the railroad. The corridor that goes through Republic is called the Cherokee Subdivision. It runs from the Springfield Railroad Yard to Tulsa. It's it's mostly freight rail. And about 50-ish trains a day typically go through. So yeah, as Karen said, this was a collaboration between BNSF and the city in anticipation of continued growth throughout Republic and increased rail volume as the country grows as well. So main goal of the plan was to identify places to enhance safety, increase local transportation, and increase rail transportation as well. So we looked at 9 crossings total. 8 of them were within the city limits of Republic, and then we also looked at County Line Road because it's so close to the city limits of Republic and will most likely someday be part of Republic. We didn't look at anything to the north, even though there's 2 crossings up that way as well in Greene County. So we've divided up the crossings into zones. So zone 1 focuses on pedestrian accommodations and some grade corrections. Zone 2 looks at some closures, and then zone 3 will look at some realignment stuff that goes along with the MM corridor. So we'll jump into zone 1, which is County Line Road and O'Neill Road. So this is the existing condition of County Line Road. It's a humped crossing, which means you hump over the railroad tracks. It can be a sight distance issue in a humped crossing, so it's not ideal. And if you've ever tried to turn left when eastbound on County Line Road, you're gonna be there a minute. So, relatively low crossing volumes, and no pedestrian facilities, which there's nothing out there right now, so. And then we also looked at O'Neill as part of this, zone 1. So, still relatively low crossing volumes there, and no pedestrian facilities as well. So what we're recommending in this area, and we'll go through these in more detail as we go through, but would be a closure at 194 County Line Road and a closure at O'Neill Road with a new overpass along US 60 to still make that connection to the other side of the tracks. So, and as we're going along, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. So this is what County Line would look like. It would be a simple closure of the road right there, so just no access there. You have access from Farm Road 67 as well. It's pretty straightforward. And then same thing at O'Neill. You've got Concordia Avenue right there to get around as well. So with those two closures, what we would look at is overpass on over US 60 and the railroad tracks, somewhere between the two. And then this was just a mock-up of what that could look like, tying into Frisco Boulevard out there on the west side of town. We also looked at, this would tie into Kansas Avenue a little bit down. Let me see if this thing works. So right here, maybe, is Kansas Avenue as it heads into Republic, which is a secondary arterial road through Republic, and can be a major north-south corridor in the future. So this would be a good western overpass over the rail and over 60 that we don't have anywhere else along this corridor, or along the US 60 corridor. So, and with this, with closing with closing 194 and some of the other ones, it does allow for potentially longer siding on this side of town, which can clear Main Street if built, which means there wouldn't be trains stopped on Main Street like there are today. This could also tie into quiet zones. I know the city has considered pursuing a quiet zone in the past, which is just where trains don't blow their horns as they go through town. So that could all be part of what you're looking to get out of this. Zone 2 would be what we're calling Central Republic, and it consists of West, Main Street, Hampton, and Hines. So this is West Avenue. Again, relatively low crossing volumes. And then Main Street, which has high crossing volumes, and pedestrian crossings here as well. So yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about these as well. So we're recommending closure on West Avenue, Main Street reconfiguration, and then closure on Hampton Avenue with some sort of probably a pedestrian overpass, if we still want pedestrians to go through there, and then Hines Street crossing safety enhancements, which we'll go through these a little bit more. On this slide, we looked at what it would look like to try to put an overpass or an underpass type structure on each of these roads. So the orange is the runout distance for an underpass, and the yellow is the runout distance if we tried to go over the tracks. So as you can see, that goes pretty much tears right through all of downtown if we were trying to do an overpass in that situation. So then the underpass is a little bit less, but still pretty intense infrastructure requirements for those. So West Avenue is a simple, just cut the road off. You've got Egan Street and Broad Street connections right there. So that just simply wouldn't be a through street anymore. And this also ties into the quiet zone, as well as additional room for a siding. The siding would require additional track to be built, but this would be part of, if we wanted to do that on the south side of town, this would be one of the requirements. These are the possible reconfigurations of Main Street to make it a little bit better. The first one is simply closing Elm Street on the north side of the tracks. That eliminates some of the conflict points right there at Main Street. And then the other option would be to turn Elm Street into one-way streets heading away from Main Street. So again, eliminating conflict points, people trying to turn left out of Elm Street on the north side of the tracks. And then enhanced pedestrian facilities in either situation. Hampton, similar. You'd cut off at the school road on the north side, and then there's a tie-in road on the south side as well. The issue with this one was we did notice, while it's got low traffic volume, there is quite a few pedestrians that cross here, mostly students from school going into the neighborhoods and stuff like that. So something we would recommend here would be some sort of pedestrian overpass or something to get over the railroad tracks here. And then at Hines Street, would remain open. It's a secondary arterial through town, a lot of volume through here. You've got the schools dispersed in this area. The bus barn is west of this location and the school to the east. So just some enhanced pavement markings, clean up the visibility a little bit, regrade the approach, and then some additional pedestrian upgrades at this crossing is what we're recommending. And then we'll move into Zone 3, which is kind of the northeastern part of Republic. So Farm Road 93, these are the existing conditions. It's severely humped as you come, if you're coming south on 93, and then you immediately go into a right-in, right-out situation coming up to US 60 there. Farm Road 170, which is very low volume. I know there's a couple of businesses there, but they also have other ways around. And then at Farm Road 168, the railroad tracks come and go, or Maverick now. So recommending closures on all of those, which some of those are tied into the project as well. I believe Farm Road 170 and the closure are already planned for when that highway gets realigned. But looking at Farm Road 93, this would be the closure. You'd simply just close the crossing, tie 93 into Farm Road 172, which leads back to Boston, and folks can come down that way, or take 93 out to Farm Road 168. And then this really doesn't affect the signal configuration here because it's already set up to be a right-in, right-out. But a possibility would be to make Oakwood a right-in, right-out as well. There's pros and cons to that as well, but that's a little outside of this. It does act as a good speed buffer coming into town to slow people down of like, hey, you're in town now. But I have had to sit there and wait for left turning traffic, so I get it. Farm Road 170, yeah, simple closure, remove the turn lanes. Back on 93, part of that right-in, right-out discussion is the J-turns are already installed there, so that's something else to consider. But yeah, so just simple closure. We have a cul-de-sac shown here just for trucks that come in, need to turn around there. And then would just be closure and tie into Farm Road 168. And then Zone 4 is the former Brookline area. which just consists of Hale Street, which is another one that is tied into the Highway MM realignment. So we've got that alignment shown here. And then, yeah, existing conditions. There's not a lot of traffic here at all. I don't think we picked up any pedestrians trying to cross here either. There's no pedestrian facilities either way. So be a simple dead end with cul-de-sacs for folks to turn around. And then once MM is built, that will be your new way through that area, or to get to US 60 from there. So, which again is part of the MM realignment project.
Councilmember Campbell.
So on Farm Road 93, Farm Road 170, Double M, and L Street is all in the agreement with the new alignment with Double M?
I don't believe 93 is in that agreement. I believe it's Farm Road 170, MM, and Hale Street. I could be wrong. I think city staff would, yeah.
So just the three?
Yes. Yep.
Councilmember Harder.
Yeah, just for my clarification, on that, if you can just show me on that map up there, where is the double track start and finish? Do you know that?
Actually, it's shown, well, this would be the new siding, but the darker red here would be, so there's already an existing siding on the south side of town. That's where folks, the trains stop and they cover Main Street sometimes. There isn't a siding to the north, which is what Jim's going to discuss, the possibility of putting a siding up there. But this would show an extension of this southern siding so that trains could stop before they got to Main Street and be off of Main Street when they do have to stop in order to let other trains go by.
Thank you. I found it on my map.
Okay.
Thank you, Garrett.
Yep. And then Jim Townsend's going to take it from here.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's afternoon now.
It is. So as Garrett went through the crossing discussions, when we originally set out to do this study, it was trying to find those win-win opportunities that could help, one, the city and the quality of life for the residents there. The block crossings are something that BNSF has heard in the past, that, okay, this is an issue of Main Street and so on, mainly due to the siding that's there. And so what happens is when the train stops and is using the siding, it takes about an hour-ish to make the breaks so that the streets can open up. And then it takes about an hour-ish to close them, get the train reconnected so it can go and do its thing. So as we were first looking at, okay, what's going on with the overall system, transportation system here in town? And we saw, okay, well, all the crossings, except for on the north side there, all the crossings on the south side are all at grade. And, maybe there's a opportunity in the future to just plan for a future grade separation. And we thought, okay, what about the existing crossings? Do any of the existing crossings promote an opportunity to grade separate? As Garrett went through, there's a lot of impact there. And that's how we came up with the concept at the very west end that could span the track, span 60, connect both sides of 60, and almost act like an interchange to connect up with 60 and also provide another win for MoDOT as a potential funding partner for them to get interested in this type of project. Because if, any kind of access onto the state highway system is a conflict point. Any type of crossing to the railroad is a conflict point. And so if we can try to understand how to mitigate those conflict points, you know, maybe there's an opportunity where the city can win, BNSF can win, MoDOT can win, and there's something out there that can help facilitate the growth that you guys are experiencing. You know, the other thing that we wanted to do is not wait too long to get some lines on the map. If an idea is worth pursuing, at least having some lines on the map brings more awareness of what you're trying to do with the community. Because I've been doing this for a while, and what I've seen, I was out in Colorado when all the explosive growth was going on out there, and many of the communities waited too long to put some lines on the map, and development occurred without any discussion, without any, hey, we need to talk about this. Let's step back and talk about this before the opportunity goes away. And those opportunities do go away pretty quickly. So, you know, as we were talking with Karen, there's the industrial park site, Garrett Farms Industrial Park to the north. And we thought, you know, for that site to really be served, rail served, those sidings, at least a northern siding needs to be developed to properly serve that, because you can't just serve it right off the tracks. And to the south end, with Main Street having the highest volume, we thought, how do we clear Main Street? Well, we can make the siding longer to the south, but the only way to get anybody interested in extending the siding to the south is to make it so they don't have to break the train to use the siding. So when the train has to break in order to use the siding, it makes it difficult to use the siding in general, and then it makes it difficult for the community to be served by rail. You know, so this is where, you know, this collaboration of trying to figure out what are those win-win opportunities. That's probably one of them. That's a simpler opportunity that could also be phased and allow MoDOT to get into the discussion about 60. So what we did is we took a look at what's out there today. We said, okay, the track to the north of Main Street is 1,000 feet or so to the north. That amount of track would need to be added to the south end of the track, along with some extras so it can actually hold the trains that are, you know, the trains today are 2 miles long. And if you have a 7,000 foot long siding, they can't really work. So as the community grows, and if the siding's not long enough, it doesn't get used. It makes it harder to serve the community. So this concept allows the track to be extended to the south and have enough length to not block Main Street. But in order to do anything like this, you don't want crossings in the sidings. So you'd have to close those crossings that go through the sidings. To the north, we thought, okay, let's look at Garrett Farms property and say, okay, if that were to be rail served someday, there are a couple options that could allow you to have a 10,000 foot long track siding. You'd have to close Farm Road 148, which is a county road. Very, very low volume, but that would keep rail operations totally separate from what would happen in that industrial park. And, you know, there are a couple different ways to serve it, but there is a lot of opportunity with that property up there if it ultimately wants to be rail served. I know that BNSF Economic Development has been involved in the discussions to help certify that property. But, you know, again, having this in mind as the development discussions are being had for those properties is really important, because if the siding doesn't go in, it makes it so that property really can't be rail served. It could be near rail, but not rail served directly. So moving forward, the key is just continued coordination with BNSF. Wilson and Company is under contract with BNSF in many different ways to help on communities like Republic with these types of discussions. We're an on-call engineer. We have an MSA contract with them for engineering services. We know the railroad industry. On the grant side of things, the second bullet's pursue federal funding. So I'm managing BNSF's grants program for the Heartland area, and this is part of the Heartland area. And so there are 3 major programs that the Federal Railroad Administration has to help communities like Republic go after funding to improve crossings or eliminate crossings or improve safety, really. And that's the end goal, is how do we improve safety for everybody? You know, and then on the MoDOT side, we're also on call with MoDOT on the engineering and the railroad side. And so MoDOT does have different funding programs to help with projects like this as well. And they do have funding for communities when a crossing is closed, to say, we'll give you $300,000 per crossing for every crossing that's closed. And a lot of times that's used to help facilitate a match or whatever for some other project that you're trying to do. And in the end, what this does is it just allows these discussions to be had and to come up with a game plan between all the partners and say, hey, we're starting to get some development pressure to the south. Let's get something really figured out here before it gets too late. So the Public Infrastructure and Investments team over at BNSF, Jeremy is here with me. He manages the grants program for the south half of the U.S. And so our work is with Jeremy directly, and Jeremy is part of the engineering team at BNSF. So Kara Brockkamp, she would interact with the communities in this region. So the interaction with those local public projects managers, all of that is within the same umbrella of engineering, which is great from trying to facilitate these types of improvements. The left hand is always talking to the right hand. And if you have a question, you can contact any of us and we can help get the answers that you need. On the funding side, so before IIJA, before the current transportation funding program, it was about 10% of what it is today. So there's a lot of federal funding flowing out there to help projects like the projects we talked about through the presentation. Either grade separations, closures, modifications, lengthening sidings, all that kind of stuff. There's it's about a 10-time amount to just for rail-specific activities to be able to go and try to capture those funds. And we've had a lot of success capturing those funds. The dark orange lines on the map, those are all the intermodal corridors for BNSF, and Republic is on the Cherokee sub, which is part of the intermodal corridors. So a lot of the shipments that are coming from LA, they will travel through this area. So that's where you're getting 40 or 50 trains a day. That's a lot of traffic. So from a BNSF focus standpoint, how, the grade separations, the closures, just how do you improve safety in general? The safety side of it, trying to mitigate safety issues on the corridor is their number one priority. And in many cases, the safety aspects are in the urbanized areas like Springfield, but they're also on the outskirts of these communities that are growing, and that are trying to figure out how they're growing and what they're doing and so on, because they haven't had to think about these types of issues in the past. It hasn't been as prevalent. But now as the volume's growing, because the houses are going up and the commercial centers are going up, industrial parks are going up, and trucks are having to go over the crossings, and there isn't enough room for 2 trucks to hold while a train is going by, between the highway and the rail. And so what we've developed is this program of idea improvements to help facilitate how your community really wants to grow. So with our contract with BNSF has us help the communities with grants. They pay for the grant work that we do. The community is the sponsor. BNSF cannot be the grant applicant. So we'll work with the community to figure out what the right scope is for what they want to pursue. And, we'll get all the project partners together and figure out, okay, what's this vision that we're gonna try to portray in the grant, and go get it. And in some cases, it's been community specific. In some cases, it's crossing specific. Some cases, it's county wide. Some cases, it's multi-county wide. But it's all depends on what we're trying to accomplish as a whole and what the story is, because the stronger you make the story in the grant, the more possible that grant actually becomes something. We have an example in eastern Kansas where we have a grant from Spring Hill down to Fort Scott. And the improvements that we're looking at are mainly in Spring Hill and Fort Scott. But we didn't want them to compete against each other, so we blended the two, submitted one grant, and they got it. So there's strategy to this. Once a community does receive a grant, then we're also here to help make sure that thing gets obligated. And helping get that grant obligated takes attention. There's a lot of details that FRA is looking for, or federal highways, if you go for a federal highway grant, there's details that MoDOT's looking for, there's details that, that have to be, all the boxes need to be checked before the authorization comes to say, yeah, you can move forward with the grant. And then just to make sure that all the systems are in place so that, once the grant is obligated, BNSF and you guys are tied up partners on the funding side. So you absolutely know, okay, we're gonna be spending this amount in quarter one, this amount in quarter two, and make sure that, because all of these programs are reimbursement programs, but you wanna make sure that you're submitting monthly so that you're not financing the government, financing the feds, and their strategy to that as well. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions you have. I know we threw a lot at you. But, you know, again, you have a growing community. There's a lot of opportunity here to really make it safer from a interaction with the railroad perspective.
Does city council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Campbell?
So, with a double M alignment, closing Hill Street, double M, and Farm Road 97, currently there is 1.3 miles of double track from 156 down to almost double M. Could they not extend that on down to Farm Road 93 and would give them roughly 3 miles of double tracks where there would be no crossing as soon as double M is aligned? And I know this is like a two-part question, so then, I'm not saying that all those other at grades downtown and out west don't need to be closed. I think my question is, that could be further in the future, but immediately, since double M is getting so close to being realigned, could they not do their double track there where they wouldn't have to stop the trains from West Main Street, O'Neill, and County Line?
So the double track that's up on the north side right now is the service track for the power plant?
So, the power plant does come off of that track, but there is 2 tracks there that go from 156 to just north of double M. So, yes, one of those, there is a track that goes to the power plant, but they still have double tracks all the way from 156 to double M.
But I think the double track there is also part of that need to serve the power plant.
So
So-
what you're saying is, if a coal train comes in, they can't be utilizing this section for stop trains if they need, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
So I don't know the rules, so I gotta ask the questions.
Yep, no, I'm glad you are. That's great.
Oh, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. That was a great question. Do we have any other questions from city council? Councilmember Gerke?
Thanks, very, very informative. I kind of have a clarification and then question, but, so I get the benefit, right? Safety, traffic flow, better utilization of the tracks for BNSF, possible spur, which is great for property and that. So, I mean, that pretty good assumption of,
Yes.
of the benefits of it on there. And so then the cost on there, obviously, it's a long process, you know, I think you said 3 to 5 years. Like, how does I'm sure it can vary a lot, but, you know, what does the cost share look like as far as what's responsible? Is it all grants? Is it a combination of grants, city funds? Like, how does that shake out? And I'm sure it can happen in a variety of ways.
Yeah, it really can vary depending on the project itself. You know, if you get aggressive with closing crossings beyond, say, the siding area, okay, that allows other funds to get more infused into the project from MoDOT. And it also gets BNSF excited because there's fewer interactions with the tracks. So, you know, and you know, if it turned into even a bigger project where the county got involved too and closed some more crossings, you know, you could strategize on this at a larger scale and have very little come from the city. But it all depends on how aggressive you want to get with it. But in the end, that southern siding, you need to close at least 3 crossings or 2 crossings. The crossings to the west of Main Street in order to be able to facilitate not impeding Main Street at all.
And other question you had was, if we extended one of the sidings,
Yeah.
is there acquisition on there, is it easements, does that vary? Typically, there's already easements in place for that, I assume.
The railroad has right away. Yeah, when we did the concept, we just made sure that there's space there, there's enough space there to be able to
Would be
do it.
displaced in the current stuff. And then, and this may not be a question to you, so if we close down some of these intersections on there, I'm sure it's the railroad's authority to, but the noise part, are they still announcing going through those, or how does that work, or is that something else? So,
No, that can be part of this too. But, you know, whenever there's an at-grade crossing, unless it's a quiet zone, you know, they have to announce that they're approaching. And, you know, quiet zones are not safety-minded crossings. So there are risks that you're taking on with a quiet zone, and the railroads don't pay for quiet zones. The communities pay for quiet zones. They run a couple $1,000,000 at least by the time you get all the equipment in there. But the other safety improvements, there's a partnership there to help pay for the improvements. And with the grant, you know, BNSF pays for us to develop the grant with you, and typically they're a 50-50 partner in the match, which is a 20% match. So the city would pay 10%, BNSF would pay 10%. And, you know, that's anywhere from the study side to the engineering side to the construction side. We also have their Southwest Division too. I'm managing that as well. And so, you know, being able to see and understand how they work, how BNSF works with these communities, it's really a different opportunity from any other railroad that we work with. We work with all the railroads, and this BNSF has taken this approach to maximize the opportunity with the federal funding that's out there to try to advance these improvements with the communities that they interact with and they partner with. And there are some that want to, and we go all in, and there are some that don't, and we spend the attention on the communities that want to partner. You know, it's the opportunity is here, and it could be short-lived. It could be here for a while. We don't know. It's a year-by-year story, you know, and so we try to get our grants in, and then a year and a half later, they get obligated. And depending on the schedule that you put in there, you know, you could say, I wanted to start in 2028. Okay, that's fine.
is it fair to say, so there's grants for the actual work, for the front work on there, so anywhere along the process, obviously, we'd have some sort of budget for each phase.
Yeah. The work that we just did for this study, probably, it really allowed you to leapfrog in terms of project readiness, because you have some ideas that are documented. The key is that you accept the study as something that the community is supportive of. You know, in the end, the goal is that, okay, we've done this study, now we want to advance some things. And how we advance it, it could be through MoDOT, it could just be partnership of BNSF, it could be that we go get a grant or 2 or 3 or 4, and you know, depending on how you want to phase it. But you know, that key is communicating and being a partner and advancing these ideas.
Thank you, Councilmember Gerke. Do we have any additional questions? Councilmember Harder?
I know this is probably subjective, but the grant success ratio, does Burlington Northern have that? I mean, 90% of the grants we apply for are gone through, or?
So last year, we hit on 9 of the 10 or so. Yeah, it was about 9 of the 10 that we submitted.
You know what those dollar values were by any chance, or?
They were all studies, but it was probably 10 million, $15 million worth of grants. We just submitted a $40 million construction grant out in Flagstaff. I mean, it's just, there's different programs for different things, and the other thing I'll say too is historically, communities have been intimidated by the railroad. They haven't interacted with the railroad, so the crossing visions are not baked into the plans, into the comp plans, transportation plans, so on. It's like, no, that's the railroad, we don't want to deal with them, we don't know how to deal with them. And this is, this study that we just did was the opportunity to create that common understanding of what each other's trying to do and work together to advance it. There are so many communities so we're working in 13 states that don't know how to work together. They talk about project by project, but there's no strategy there. It's like, we need to cross the tracks. We need to improve this crossing at the tracks. Okay, submit your permit and submit your plans, and we'll look at them and approve them and so on. But they don't know what about the next crossing down? What do we want to do there? And when is that going to happen? And so on. Well, that's where these types of plans really help, and then they feed up into your comprehensive plan. And so you can blend in your land use planning decisions along with the transportation system that's supporting it. And, this Garrett Farms property is now rail served, so it gets a whole bunch of trucks off the corridors that are being shared with all your public. So, there's just a lot of opportunity with stuff like this, just to take a step back and say, okay, how do we make this all work together so that it's the community we're trying to build?
Any additional questions from City Council?
Jeremy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
May I take a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
First, Mr. Mayor, rest of the council members, appreciate the time and the opportunity to come up here and talk about this, and as well as the progression of the study that Jim did a good job of laying out for us. So just real briefly here, the reason why we're here is, one, we're certainly trying to advocate for this grants program within BNSF, driven mainly by the need for safety, and BNSF's strong belief that safety is number one, and we're trying to find opportunities that are out there to partner with communities. And as Jim already laid out, we're trying to find these win-win scenarios for BNSF and the communities that we operate through. They're not going to progress anywhere if we don't have the public support, if we don't have the support of community, city, county leaders to progress these things. And also, why are we doing this now? It's to take advantage of this federal funding that's become available over the past 5 years or so. You guys know as well as I do that projects have become exponentially more expensive here over the past handful of years. Railroad infrastructure is not immune to that either. So how do we help fill that gap? And a lot of that, we're really focusing on trying to take advantage of this federal funding. There's a couple grant programs administered by the Federal Railroad Administration that really focus on railroad-centric projects. And these projects that have good public benefit, and mainly the interaction between BNSF and the communities that we operate through are at these at-grade crossings, which has been a big part of the conversation here today through that study. So how can we mitigate the risks that are currently out there? How do we minimize them? A lot of that through crossing geometry. Crossing closure is, of course, the fail-safe way to eliminate that interaction between the public and BNSF, or all trains for that matter. Grade separation does that too, but also trying to understand too that you guys still need to be able to provide connectivity for your residents, and it's probably not going to come without some growing pains as well. So how do we mitigate that as well? So that's where the collaboration between BNSF and the communities that we operate come through. Jim said too, that we're open to discussion. These are just some options that they come up with. If you guys got some other ideas that we can try to pursue, open to that as well. We've got team members who are ready to talk to you. I'm out of Kansas City. I've lived here in Springfield for a number of years, though. So this is a second home, so appreciate the opportunity coming down here and see this nice building, too. The last time I was here, this was not in place. But anyways, to that, Jim did a good job of laying everything out, but don't mean this to be the end-all of the discussion. If there's anything else that we can do for the city, or if we can expand this and take a look at it from a county's perspective and include MoDOT, whatever needs to be done to try to advance some projects to enhance safety, improve some infrastructure, and not just look, you know, what do you guys need for tomorrow, but what do you need 10 years from now, 20 years from now to make sure that Republic's viable and you guys are accomplishing what you need to accomplish, and BNSF being able to do the same thing. So appreciate your time, and if there's anything needed from me, happy to answer any questions or follow up with anything that you guys may need as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have any additional questions, comments from City Council? Okay, looks like there's none. So I really appreciate it, Jeremy, Jim, for all that information. I know, just looking at that, I know there's probably some unpopular things in there, but there's also some solutions that also make that a more effective solution for in the future, especially when it comes to safety. And I know all of our crossings are unique, and I appreciate having this information, be able to form those partnerships and actually do something about that safety. The railroad that formed our community to begin with, and so welcoming them back in for that rail service would certainly be something historical for our town. And the safety is paramount for ensuring, especially by those school crossings and those crossings that are easy for someone to cross. So appreciate all that hard work and that presentation and the information. Appreciate the good questions from City Council too. That's a lot of great information, a lot of good questions.
And before I sit back down, we've got some pamphlets here too that explains a lot that Jim already presented on too. You're looking at it, a lot of it's the same thing, but these are certainly meant to be left out for you guys to review, provided externally. So names, email address, phone numbers, if you guys need to get a hold of us, they're all included in here as well.
Excellent. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Perfect. Thank you very much. You don't have a trip back to Kansas City though, do you?
I'm sorry?
You said you're back here in Springfield.
My office is currently in Kansas City.
Oh.
I worked here in the Springfield office for a number of years.
Okay. Well, have a safe trip home. That's my hometown. So, that was our only two items that we had on our agenda for this afternoon. Does City Council have anything that they would like to add before we close? Okay. Seeing how there is none,